The Seahawks are 4-1 and they've looked excellent throughout the season. And Russell Wilson is proving himself to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. His versatility, his accuracy, and his athleticism has given him an edge for years now, but it seems like he's at the peak of his game. The Browns, on the other hand, just had one of the most embarrassing losses in franchise history on Monday Night Football against a team that competes with Seattle in the NFC West and the San Francisco 49ers. So the question here is, how do the Browns match up against a team that's on top of their game when they are so clearly not at the top of their game? Now, does this mean that the Browns have no chance? I actually don't think so. I think the Browns have a pretty good chance because I think the Browns match up pretty well with the Seattle Seahawks, but let's talk about it. All right, so we're going to start this like we start every single one of these with some key matchups. And the first matchup is going to be the Seattle Seahawks talented but very, very underperforming edge rush versus the Browns' just abysmal offensive tackle situation. And if anything that we've learned is that the offensive tackles actually can hold up when they play against lesser defensive ends. They did pretty good against Matthew Judon, against the Ravens, for example. But the issue is when you have very talented pass rushers, these offensive tackles cannot keep up. Last week it was evident with Dee Ford and Nick Bosa. And this week it's something that you would think based on name value would be evident with Jadeveon Clowney and Ezekiel Ansah. But if you actually look at the numbers, those two have not done a good job of getting to the quarterback. They've each only racked up about a sack apiece. And this is against teams like the Cardinals, the Cincinnati Bengals. But yeah, even against those two lesser teams with bad offensive lines, this pass rush has not been able to get going, which gives me hope that the Browns are actually going to have time to drop back and throw the ball and be able to keep Baker Mayfield clean, because the Seattle Seahawks team, again, not a great team at getting to the quarterback, only 10 sacks throughout the year. Now, does this mean that Greg Robinson can step up to the occasion and block better? Hopefully. Does this mean that Jadeveon Clowney is not going to have a Jadeveon Clowney type day against a dude like Greg Robinson? No, that could most likely happen. But so far, with lesser competition than what I believe the Browns' offensive line is, they haven't. So I would have to side with that. The Browns have a good chance to slow down their pressure woes and keep Baker Mayfield upright and allow him to get in rhythm and play his game. The second matchup that I'm worried about is Russell Wilson's mobility versus this Browns defensive line. Now, the Browns defensive line is very athletic. Sometimes, though, in the Baltimore game, they did not finish, but Lamar Jackson's a little bit more elusive than what Russell Wilson is, but Russell Wilson still is very, very slippery. And sometimes Myles Garrett has had a problem bringing those kind of quarterbacks down and keeping those quarterbacks contained in the pocket. So I am worried about what his mobility can do to negate some of the pass rush that the Browns might be able to get on this Seattle Seahawks offensive line. And that is a huge concern there. Myles Garrett has been playing great. You would expect him to be able to handle this, but with smaller quarterbacks like Jeff Driscoll last year, very small but mobile quarterback, Myles Garrett did not do very well in taking him down. He allowed him to have a lot of extra plays. So that is one thing I'm worried about. And with a guy like Russell Wilson, obviously, if he gets loose, if he gets an extra second or two, he is absolutely going to kill you. And with the Browns not sure at who is going to be healthy in the secondary, it is going to be imperative on this defensive line to get to Russell Wilson and finish on those plays, or else they put their secondary in a very, very bad spot that is already in a bad spot. The third matchup is the Browns linebackers versus Will Dissly. Now, you may have never heard of this guy, Will Dissly. I honestly didn't hear about this guy before this season, but this man has been having a great season so far. He is one of the statistically, he's one of the best tight ends in the NFL. And why does that concern me? Well, the Browns have had two glaring weaknesses so far in the season. Inability to stop a good edge rush, and the inability to stop tight ends, specifically on third and long. And this guy kind of is built for that kind of a situation. So again, it's going to be a question of whether the Browns linebackers can step up, whether the Browns are going to put a safety up on him. I don't imagine that. But the Browns have to have a solution for these tight end woes. They've been getting killed by tight ends. And again, you let a guy like Russell Wilson get comfortable, get in rhythm, and get his tight end going, you're going to be in a world of trouble. So the Browns should be very careful of that. And the fourth matchup that I am thinking about when it comes to this game is the Browns rushing attack versus the Seattle Seahawks top 10 run defense. The Seattle Seahawks are really good at stopping the run, and the Browns have looked their best when they're able to work off the run game. Now, what does this mean? It might mean nothing. The Ravens were a very good run-stopping team when we played them, and Nick Chubb went off for about 160 yards on the Ravens. So this could be nothing. It could be something, but it is something to watch out for because I think the vulnerability in the Seahawks defense is more in the secondary. And again, that's going to be reliant on the offensive line being able to keep Baker Mayfield upright and Baker being able to find rhythm. So if you're the Browns, you might want to run the ball, but it's not recommended because this run defense is good for two very good reasons, and that is their two linebackers that have been playing very well. Michael Kendricks, who used to be a Brown until he got cut in training camp because he lied to John Dorsey about insider trading. And, of course, Bobby Wagner, who is probably the best linebacker in the NFL. I feel like that's not even a controversial statement. And these guys are very good at filling in gaps and stopping the run. And they also have Jadeveon Clowney on the defensive line. And while his sack numbers may be underwhelming, Jadeveon has always been touted as one of the best run-stopping defensive ends in the NFL. So they are going to be very, very good in that area. I would not expect this to be a huge Nick Chubb game. And I would expect the Browns to have to kind of shy away from the run game a little bit and just take their chances with keeping Baker Mayfield upright and being able to take advantage that way. All right, now let's look at some of the key inactives for the game. For the Browns are actually starting to get healthy. Rashard Higgins practiced full for 2 days in a row, so it looks like he might play. Greedy Williams and Denzel Ward have practiced on a limited basis. I don't think they're going to play, but they could play. But they're listed as day-to-day as well. And then on the Seahawks side, Dwayne Brown is doubtful, has not practiced yet. DJ Fluker also doubtful, has not practiced yet. Ethan Pollock is probable. He did practice this week, and then Brandon Jackson is also probable. So with the Browns getting healthy, they need to get healthy in the secondary for this game. It would be really nice to have one of those two back, Ward or Williams. But Rashard Higgins also coming back would be huge because I think he is a key part in having Baker Mayfield be able to find his rhythm in the passing game. So those are both very big things, and that's the injury report heading into this game. All right, now every team has a weakness. Every team has a huge flaw. And let's look at the Seahawks' huge flaw, which is, I think, their secondary. Now, they've only had 3 interceptions, and they've given up 270 yards per game. And they've also given up the 5th most yards in the NFL. But here's the key stat. They've only given up 7 touchdowns, which is about in the middle of the pack of the NFL. So bend, but don't break kind of pass defense. Very interesting to see how the Browns will match up with this. I think you can get the big play over this secondary. I think this is a game where you have to get Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham the ball and let them do their thing. Baker Mayfield has to let it rip. Baker Mayfield has to be in rhythm. And with the edge rushers underperforming up to this point, I feel like he does have an opportunity to let things rip and get in rhythm like he did in Baltimore. So that is what I think is going to be the biggest issue that's going to plague the Seahawks and the biggest attack point for the Cleveland Browns. Now, on the other side of the ball, obviously, if you're a Browns fan, you know what I'm going to say here. It doesn't even have to be said, honestly. It's the Browns' offensive tackles. Browns' offensive tackles are not good so far. I don't want to keep trashing them and calling them awful. But they have given up an average of 3 sacks per game so far in this season, and that's just not acceptable. You can't give up that many sacks per game when last year, when this team was rolling, you only gave up like 1 or 2 sacks in 8 games. So this offensive line has to step it up, has to play better, and has to be able to keep Baker Mayfield up so he can get in a rhythm. I've said this before, and this is not a knock on Baker Mayfield, but Baker Mayfield at this point in his career, his second year, is a rhythm quarterback. And that's okay. He's a young quarterback. A lot of young, great quarterbacks were rhythm quarterbacks early in the year. Big Ben was a very, very big example of that. But if you're the Browns, you have to understand it. Your quarterback is a rhythm quarterback. You need to be able to get him in rhythm. If this offensive line can't keep him upright, then you're putting him in a position of where Baker has to manufacture rhythm. He's not at that point in his career yet. He's not at that point in his development yet to where he can just manufacture rhythm. So you have to allow Baker Mayfield to get in the rhythm. You have to put him in the best situations to find that rhythm. And if you do that, good things will come. The reason Baker Mayfield has looked bad is because this Browns offensive tackle situation has not really allowed him to find rhythm in the pocket like it did last year. When he's in rhythm, he is great. He is very accurate. He is a very, very deadly and dangerous quarterback. When he's off rhythm, that's when you see the struggles. That's when you see the double pats. That's when you see the roll back out to the right, away from the line of scrimmage, and him throwing across his body because he's trying to manufacture rhythm. He's not at that point yet. He is not that level of quarterback that can manufacture his own rhythm. He needs to be put in rhythm. So it's going to be very imperative that the Browns slow down Jadeveon Clowney and allow him to continue to underperform so they can have their quarterback stay upright and be in rhythm, because that's what he needs right now. All right, so let's jump into some win criteria. For the Seahawks, you're going to need your edge rushers to play to their potential. Ezekiel Ansah and Jadeveon Clowney are two of the more athletic pass rushers in the NFL, and they honestly should have more than 2 sacks combined. That is kind of embarrassing. So if this Seahawks team can get 3 sacks combined out of those guys this game, they're probably going to win this game, and they're probably going to make the Browns look really bad because, again, that is something that the Browns have struggled with and have not really had an answer for so far in the season. Also, they're going to want to get Will Dissly involved in the game because, again, tight ends, huge vulnerability in this Browns defense that is otherwise really solid. And then also they're going to want to play physical and knock the offense off rhythm. This doesn't just preclude to Baker Mayfield, but it also precludes to OBJ. Jarvis, this happens to less because Jarvis is very physical. But with OBJ, you can knock him off rhythm. You can get him off his game. And that's kind of been the problem with this offense. If the quarterback's been in rhythm, the wide receivers haven't. If the offensive line is in rhythm, the quarterback's not. This team has not been in sync or on the rhythm this entire year, and I think that's really been the issue with it. And if the Seahawks can get physical and shake guys off the rhythm, they can accentuate that problem even more and really take advantage of that vulnerability. For the Browns, they have to get the passing game going. They have to get Baker Mayfield in rhythm. They have to. They absolutely have to. There's no winning this game by running the ball. Again, I said that against the Baltimore Ravens, so maybe it might strike twice, but I really don't think you're going to beat the Seahawks by running the ball a million times. They're too good at stopping the run. Jadeveon Clowney will not let Nick Chubb get the edge because Jadeveon Clowney is very, very fast and athletic. So if you're the Browns, you have to win this game through the air. You have to get Baker Mayfield in rhythm. You have to get these wide receivers in rhythm, and you have to take advantage of the vulnerability of that team, which is their secondary. And then also, you have to have Baker Mayfield keep his turnovers to a minimum. With a linebacker like Bobby Wagner, this is when those things can happen a lot. This is when a guy can throw a lot of interceptions when they're playing against a really good linebacker, because linebackers are really good at creating turnovers, especially Bobby Wagner. So, again, the Browns are going to have to play smart, but play in rhythm and take advantage of the weakness of the Seahawks team, which is their secondary. So what do I think is going to happen? I think the Browns match up a lot better than a lot of people think. I hope they'll put up a better showing than they did on Monday Night Football, but I'm not confident because what they showed on Monday Night Football was just so awful. And having them come off of that awful performance, I can't sit here and predict a win for the Browns against a team that's 4-1 and as good as the Seahawks have been playing. I'm going to say the Seahawks are going to win this game 35-28. I think the Browns are going to put up a decent showing, but I think the Seahawks are going to be able to edge them. I just don't think the Browns are going to have a great answer for Russell Wilson's mobility, and if they don't get both of their corners back, that's going to even be a bigger problem. So, unfortunately, I don't think the Browns are going to win this game, and they're going to go into bye week with only 2 wins if this prediction holds up, which is not optimal. Now, if they win this game, a lot of things change. The Browns are in a much better position to make the playoffs and everything, so it'll be a big win if they can win it. But if they lose this game, then it's going to just be a bigger hole for the Browns to dig themselves out of after the bye week. But that's my prediction for the game. If you like what I do here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell so you can be notified. And if you want to give a $1 a month or so and have your name added to the bottom of this bar, please donate to the Patreon. But thank you guys for watching. Have a great day and have a good night.